Hello, I'm Ficus, and oh how I absolutely love to practice anatomy, and it's totally not an attempt to convince myself, right? Right? Well, by some miracle and perhaps maybe some desire to be better at drawing shirtless men, but who knows. I did convince myself to practice anatomy, and I'm saying it to you because I am that person who understands stuff when I try to explain it to somebody else. So did I walk around in circles explaining everything in my head as if I was explaining it to somebody else? Maybe. In any case, I decided to take this explanation outside of my head, so this video now exists. Little side note, my plan is to get through anatomy of the whole body and then get into other fundamentals of drawing, because well, I am beginner self-taught artist, so I want to be better at it and I don't want to return to it years down the line, okay? The goal of this video is to explain stuff the way I would have wanted it to be explained to me, so feel free to stick around if you'll find my explanation helpful. And in this particular video I'm talking about anatomy of the torso from the front and side views. Back and 3/4 turns gonna be in the next video a little bit later. I am going for kind of more anatomically accurate yet more simplified / stylized way of drawing body, so hopefully it'll help you to understand what's going on there, but if you're looking for like extreme realism, it's not gonna be here. With that, let's get into it. So let's get into it. Here I wrote muscles that we need to get through, then here we have this. Okay, let's get it out of the way. I don't like bones, I don't like drawing them, I don't like the idea of this being in my body, but unfortunately muscles are attached to bones, so I find it helpful to understand where muscles start, where they go, where they attached. So I'm gonna be showing it here because it's more convenient that way, and here we have a rough sketch, but it'll do. I'm gonna draw this side with hand down and this side with hand up because muscles are moving, and I'm gonna try to show it through this. Okay, let's begin. We're gonna start from trapezius muscle, which is technically a back muscle, but it is visible from the front, and it is just this. If a person is not that muscular, it's gonna go something like this, and the more muscular person is, more they're gonna be sticking out. That's why bodybuilders look like tiny people in muscular costumes. And then I like to add here little bump. This is basically end of the collarbone, and trapezius is attached to collarbone, so I'm gonna show it on skeleton in a second. And then we have deltoid here, which is hand muscle, basically it's a shoulder, but we're gonna draw it because it will be helpful to understand some stuff. And then yeah, here we have collarbones like this, and yes. So if we're gonna go here, here's our neck, which by the way I consider neck to be part of head anatomy, so we're not gonna get into it today. Then we have our trapezius, which again connects to the collarbone, then this bump which is the end of the collarbone, and then here deltoid. So the way trapezius attached to collarbone is actually here, like at the end of it basically, and then it's go in the back, because again it's a back muscle on the top of the shoulder place, but we'll get to it in the next video when we'll get to the back. But it is attached to the collarbone in the front like so as well. It goes like this and behind the neck. So keep this in mind. Now we're gonna move on to pectoral muscles, or chest muscle for simplicity. They are pretty easy, they go like this and like so. Also sometimes you can see a line here, something like so. Some people draw it, you can see it on people, on references and stuff. It's basically a space separation between deltoid and pectoral muscle, because again, let's go here. I'm gonna do this so we can better see it. Deltoid attached to the collarbone as well, something like here, and then you have pectoral muscle attached to the collarbone. If you want to be very technical, here there's a little triangle space which in where deltoid is not yet started, but pectoral muscle is basically already over or also not yet started, so you can see sometimes a little dip here. It is very specific knowledge that I have, so I'm gonna share it with you, but I don't know, you're probably never gonna use it. Also pectoral muscle attached like so, so not in like one line, so when you draw you can add this space a little bit between pectoral muscles as well. This makes them look like they have more volume. So if a person more muscular, you can do this, but it is very much depend. You can see a lot of people have pectoral muscles kind of like so. Here they go in line, and then here something from the middle they split like so. Then some have it in one line, then some have this space. Just look at references, find a way that you wanna simplify or stylize it. Do whatever you want basically. Now returning to where they attach, they go like this, and they attached to the arm somewhere in this area. And yes, this part of pectoral muscle goes like this. They also like twist around here, so they go something like this, and this space go down and this space goes up. Not very important, but again, just keep it in mind. And this part is covered by deltoid, it sits on top of it, but it is useful to remember this when you draw pectoral muscle move, because that's how muscle movement work. I don't know. Let's actually get into the muscle movement of pectoral muscle. On the torso from the front, all of the muscle movement happening pretty much here when arms are moving, when they're gonna be like this, or again where they lift it, when arm lifted up all the way up here, because again muscle fiber of pectoral muscle connected to the bone of the arm. So when arm move, pectoral muscles move as well. So when hand moving, it's not gonna be the same way. So if your arm is going up and you draw this, don't do this. What will gonna be happening is, first of all, muscle gonna be appear kind of thinner here because it's stretching upwards. So here in this bottom area, it's gonna be basically a little bit thinner. It's also gonna be appearing a little bit shorter basically. And then it's gonna create this shape, something like so. And then I just like to connect it to basically collarbone here, or whatever this thing called, I don't exactly know, I'm sorry. So if you're gonna dissect this shape, so to speak, this is not only pectoral muscle, because again, pectoral muscle connected to the arm, and if arm is, let's go to the sketch layer, arm is, this is collarbone, this is shoulder, and if this is shoulder, it is gonna be here. So pectoral muscle is attached to the arm. It's not very accurate to be showing on here because again it is very rough sketch, but you can imagine if pectoral muscle attached here on the arm, how it's gonna be moving if arm is going up. We can also simplify it in the basically cylinder way. So it's attached here, goes like this, and arm then is moved up, and so this point is here. So now it is stretching, and this is what creating this shape basically. But also it's not the only thing that's creating this shape, because there's also a deltoid which again also attached to the collarbone. So basically collarbone goes something like this, and this here is pectoral muscle, but this here is already deltoid. But because muscles are basically grouped up together, or whatever you can describe it, this separation between pectoral muscle and deltoid is not visible. Collarbone also kind of getting lost in there. Again, it's kind of depend on the person. Again, look at references. Let's talk about trapezius in this view real quick. It doesn't do much. It's basically like this and that's it. It basically goes like this, and that's all of the trapezius that is visible, because again it's attached like this. So if you're gonna use your imagination and think about arm going up, all of this basically is getting covered, and so only the small part of it visible. So yeah, not too much to say about it. Now shape of pectoral muscle, I'm gonna draw it more like this actually. Also quick advice about nipples if you're interested in that. Nipples are stretching as well, so if they here like more rounded, here they're gonna be a little bit higher and a little bit more ovally, because they are sit basically on top of the muscle. So when muscles stretch, they stretch kind of as well. The more you know. Now I'm gonna draw, and then I'm gonna go back to you and explain everything, because it's gonna be a little bit easier that way. So I'm back. And first of all, a little bit about armpits. Armpits are unnecessarily complicated. Like, I don't know why. Okay, I do know why. Because a lot of muscles are start or end, depend on how you see it, in the area of armpit. For example, the ones that we are not getting into is biceps, triceps. There's also this muscle, which you probably didn't even know that it existed, but it is there. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it. There's also like these bottom muscles that we are gonna get into in a second, and it creates a lot of complication because that's how muscle works. Let's not get to biology here, but yeah, unfortunately armpits are complicated. I'm gonna be explaining all of this in details when I'm gonna be explaining arms, because I cannot explain all of this without getting into arm territory. So for today we just ignore the upper part of it and just focusing on this. I hope you will understand it, because I don't know, I will try my best to explain. So the muscle that we are gonna be focusing on right now is latissimus dorsi, which is a back muscle again and again. It sticks out from the front. But I drew it here a little bit exaggerated, like, okay, not a little bit, quite exaggerated. If a person is not muscular, it's gonna be sticking out, but like very little bit. It's not gonna be visible if arm is not lifted up. It's gonna be visible a little bit if arm is not lifted up, if a person very muscular, and it creates this arch. Also, noticed that there's like this 3 combination to the body. Just remember that we're gonna go back to it a little bit later. It is useful. And the top one created because of latissimus dorsi. Now, because I'm not gonna be explaining back in this video, I'm gonna show you this real quick. Here, this is latissimus dorsi. It's start from the front, but if you're gonna notice, it goes to the back, so it wraps around the body, and it is connected to the arm, and it actually connected in the area of pectoral muscles. So pectoral muscle attached somewhere here, if I'm not mistaken, and then latissimus dorsi attached somewhere here. So not exactly this way, this is how I understand it. I may be wrong, but it is attached to the arm somewhere in this area. So here, what's complicated for me was to kind of not forget that it attached to the arm. So this is already shoulder, so this is basically already arm. Again, the sketch is very rough. I tried to find interactable skeleton model to kind of show it there, but I couldn't, at least for free. So you're gonna have to use your imagination and imagine that this is here already an arm, and it is and latissimus dorsi attached to an arm. But also, I'm gonna show you this. This is a muscle, this is muscles of shoulder blade. And this one that interests us here called teres major. And yes, it is again another muscle of the back that sticks out from the front, and it also connects around the area of latissimus dorsi and pectoral muscle. So here, latissimus dorsi gonna go something like this, and then teres major gonna go something like this. I have a reference to show you exactly how it is on the body. Here you can see this here perfectly. This is teres major, it is like small, and this chunk of muscle is latissimus dorsi. Now here's another one. The teres major is not that visible here, but you can see here this, which is this muscle, which again I'm not gonna be trying to pronounce it, so you can kinda understand that I'm not making it up and how it looks in real life. But also here you can see that latissimus dorsi goes like this. It's not goes into the pectoral muscle. Why I'm mentioning this? Because a lot of artists simplify latissimus dorsi like this. First of all, a lot of artists simplify latissimus dorsi and teres major and draw it as one big chunk of muscle, which I do it as well, because of course I do. But again, a lot of artists simplify latissimus dorsi like this, as if it goes into the pectoral muscle or somewhere like here, which it is technically not. Technically it goes like this. It has a little bit of space between pectoral muscle and latissimus dorsi because it's not attached to a rib cage, it's attached to the arm. And yes, they are attached in kind of the same area, but that's another one. I don't exactly understand how, because again, pectoral muscle goes here and then latissimus dorsi go here. It's probably because muscle are layering on top of each other and not necessarily everything is visible. So let's not think about it too hard. So what you need to remember is that there is first teres major. Most artists don't draw it, but you sometimes can see it, and sometimes you can see it on people as well, so remember it, so you're not gonna be confused with random lines on a human body. And then it technically goes something like this, latissimus dorsi on a muscular body, and have this space between pectoral muscle and latissimus dorsi, but a lot of artists just draw it as if it just goes into the pectoral muscle. It created a lot of confusion for me. I couldn't realize what's going on for a lot of time because a lot of artists simplify this area very differently, and then there's like diagrams and explanation of anatomy which also kind of sounds a little bit different, so I struggled with this a lot. So the way I draw latissimus dorsi, it's like this. I don't continue all the way. Some people do, some people like draw the straight line or like this, and I don't. I just like to add this little line to kind of indicate that there's latissimus dorsi here and call it a day. Also with teres major you can sometimes see a little this here, which again, because again it's like two different muscles, but again I'm not doing this. Almost no one does actually. I'm also in the end gonna kind of color code these muscles, if you can describe it that way, so you can kind of screenshot it and remember it if you forget. But hopefully you understand what's going on here. And now we're gonna be moving on to these muscles, which I'm afraid to pronounce. So this muscle is group of muscle of here. They start somewhere from the bottom of the shoulder blade, and there's 9 of them. They go like this, fiber muscles. They attach each one to a rib, so they go kind of from the back to here and create this, and they go like not straight down, they go like this because they wrap around rib cage, which is round. And as you can see from the front, they are covered by pectoral muscle, and then down there they're gonna be covered by latissimus dorsi. Yeah, some people also draw latissimus dorsi all the way here. I don't know, I just kinda draw it every time a little bit different and don't think about it too much, but probably this one gonna be a little bit more anatomically accurate. So returning to how this muscle actually look like, it's these triangles. You 100% saw how they look, but return to the space between pectoral muscle and latissimus dorsi, and the fact that there's 9 of them and only 4 visible, and at the top they covered by pectoral muscle. Here on this picture you can vividly see it here and here. This one is the one that exists in this space between latissimus dorsi and pectoral muscle. You can see them. They are not part of the 4 that are visible because again they technically mostly cover and just stick out a little bit, and in most cases you're not gonna be seen here. For example, here you don't see them. This is space here. You can like, it's a little bit blurry image this, but you can see the space here and there's not visible, but it is kind of visible here, and then here the 4 of which are visible start. Also the first one kind of like very prominent, and then this one kind of like go down. Just know that there's 4 triangles that exist here. The way I put them, usually I like to pick basically a corner of pectoral muscle. Here will be latissimus dorsi also, and just pick smaller size of a brush and just do this, so like not full-on triangles, just kind of indicate that they are there, and then add lines because there's lines because of how this muscle work, because how they attach. Let's not get into biology again. Also here you can see there's no 4 of them because again they are wrapped around the body, so they're not going straight down, they going like this. So the last one is kind of like not that visible. It's most visible when you draw side view. It's not visible from the back at all. So when we're gonna get to the side view, like they're all four of them gonna be visible. Now there's only two muscles left that we need to get through. First one is the easiest thing that you can do, apps. There's technical name for them, but I just call them apps for simplicity, okay? So there's two ways I like to draw apps, either from basically a middle of pectoral muscle, like so, or from the corner of pectoral muscle, kind of on the decline, like so. I'm gonna draw this one here because we're drawing like very muscular guy, and I choose to draw them basically like this when I draw characters who are more muscular, more older, you know, because when you draw abs like this, they on top they're kind of wider, which it's kind of like shape language situation, because they look wider, they look bigger, more square like. It kind of creates the effect of being stronger, you know, more muscular. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but hopefully you realize, because okay, let's erase those top parts and draw it like this. You see, like, yes, it is abs, it is muscles, obviously, but this looks kind of bigger, kind of more. I don't know exact words that I'm looking for to describe it. Again, hopefully you just understand what I mean. Also, when you draw abs, don't do straight lines, I beg you. Do these random wavy lines, because abs are not perfect. Abs can be different shapes, abs can be different sizes, so top abs can be like very small, or they can be very wide. Abs can be asymmetrical, so you can have something like this, you know, because that's anatomy. Every person is different. A lot of people also draw abs. First of all, they draw kind of rib cage, and then it goes from the rib cage, or they draw it kind of like round like this. So abs start here, and here is basically again either rib cage or it's just how they draw abs. None of these things are incorrect, because if you look at references at real people, there's all kinds of ways that abs look. Again, there's people who have quite visible rib cages, there's people who have abs visible like this, starting in like round shape. So again, find the ways that will suit you, that you will like. I simplify them to draw either that way or that way. Also, if you want to make your abs look even bigger, even more muscular, more wider, you can just do these little things basically, because that makes abs look more defined. If you're gonna look at references of people with very like muscular abs, they are more defined. So this looks again like it has more volume, like it's even wider, like it's even more muscular. Also, a little note, belly button, I usually put it here between basically these three parts and this last large one. Again, it's more about convenience than anything else. You can put your belly button whenever you want, without too drastic changes obviously, but I think you understand it. And the last muscle that we need to get through right now, it's oblique. Now, usually I just do this and call it a day, because what is oblique? Technically, oblique is all of this part of the body. Technically, oblique is all of this, because there's internal obliques, there's external oblique, there's another muscle, the name of which I forgot. They all exist in this area, they layer on top of each other. Abs also participate in this layering on top of one another. So technically, oblique is all of the way here. It's kind of start like so or like so. I don't exactly remember how in this perspective, we're gonna get to it a little bit later. They start not exactly from the back, kind of like something from here. I just combine internal, external oblique in one shape, and so external oblique ends something here on the crest of the bone, but internal oblique there's this string here, kind of, which have a name, and internal obliques connect to this string. And so again, I just combine it and say that it's go like this, and all of this just one big oblique without separation on external, internal, it doesn't matter. But I also go even further and consider only this part as an oblique. There's explanation. First is that it's simplicity. This part is kind of already have muscle here, so I kind of treat this as part of, again, that muscle, and call it a day. I'm satisfied with the result, so to speak. But also, if you're gonna be drawing a person who is like moving, you know, like so, let's say, oblique gonna here do this and here stretch this part of oblique. This part of oblique does not move. And so I kinda just basically ignore the existence of this top part of it, because again, there's already a muscle that add shape here, add lines here, so it's not empty. But and also it doesn't move, it doesn't bend, it doesn't do anything, only this part does when body moving. So I just and pay attention to this part and not this part. Also oblique, if a person is not very muscular, gonna be like this, because it's gonna have like waist here and then go to the crest of the bone, something like this, because you know, because yeah, this part of the body doesn't have bones or anything, so like it's a waist doesn't have any bones, so it's create this. That's also, you can use it if you want to draw a shape of more like squarish. You can draw obliques like bigger, even bigger than so. If you want to create more of a triangular shape, like this turn out to be more triangular shape, you can draw obliques like more straight, and they're gonna have this triangular look to them. Again, it's about shape language, but just keep it in mind. Also, I told you that we're gonna return to the three things. Yes, so the top one is latissimus dorsi, then the bottom one is oblique, and this part is basically oblique as well, but again, this part as a part of oblique. A lot of artists draw, for example, this part very short, and latissimus dorsi like very big, very exaggerated. Or on the contrary, some people draw this part is longer and this part kind of shorter. You can just look at other people drawing, pay attention to it, kind of understand how they do it. But basis of it all, again, a lot of people use these three building blocks kind of to construct their bodies. Also, last very minor thing, if we're gonna add legs, they're gonna be like this. And what I mean by that is that crest of the pelvic bone in male bodies or more masculine bodies is kind of sticking out. So if you're gonna draw a female body or more feminine body, it's gonna go kind of like this. It's kind of smooth. Pelvic bone kind of just go into the leg, and it's usually not even that noticeable, the pelvic bone here in general. But in, again, males or masculine body, it's gonna have this because the crest of the pelvic bone is sticking out a little bit. And yes, that's kind of it for the front of the body. Well, here we're gonna have another part of male anatomy, but we're not gonna be getting into it, not today at least, and not on this platform. Yeah, so let's move on to the side view. So side view, basically same setup. I've just put this here so we can refer to it if needed. Now, we're not gonna be focusing too much on the side view, because for me at least, it's more about how body rotates. It helps me to understand how muscles like attach, how they wrap around the body, stuff like that. And there's not a lot of actually like new information, so to speak, because muscles here are either the ones that we already talked about on the front, or the one from the back, which we're gonna be talking about more details in the next video. So I'm gonna quickly show it everything, and hopefully it will help you to kind of understand stuff, how it helps me. We're also gonna be looking back at it in the next video again when we're gonna be talking about back muscles. So yeah, now the most basic information that spine have a curve. You probably know that. Rib cage then goes like this, pelvic bone goes like this. You probably know all of that, but I'm still mentioning just in case. That's what creates this basically arch or curve to the body. Again, probably already know all of that, so let's get into it. I'm actually gonna first draw this curve, and then we're gonna go back and talk about it. So here we have this. Actually, first we're gonna talk about this side of the body, and then we're gonna return here because it's gonna be easier that way. Here's on the top we have pectoral muscles. They go like this and like this. Connects to the arm. If we're gonna draw an arm here, they connect to it like so. So basically just like here in this view. It looks like this. That's all that you need to know. Also, nipple advice is gonna be somewhere like here, not here. Don't do this because nipples are not here. So don't do this, please, okay? Then we're gonna do this side. Abs create this basically wavy line, and it's not gonna go straight down. It's going a little bit kind of like this. And then here we're gonna have a crest of the pelvic bone. Then goes like this into leg, which doesn't matter for us today. Everything below the crest is not important. And so we have this. I hope you don't hear how my cat losing her mind with her toys, because my god, and I cannot do anything about it. I tried. Now before we continue, I'm trying to draw this body in the side view, and you can ask, why is it so thin? And I'm gonna answer you this question because bodies from the side view are thinner than from the front view. It's not very apparent when a person is average, but it is very apparent when a person from the front look like this, when pectoral muscle of this person is bigger than your head or my head, and then from the side view they look like a stick, because there is not that much room to grow from the side. Like you can a little bit, you know, like this. That's why the person is muscular, this arch is more exaggerated and stuff. That's why pectoral muscle is bulkier, but still it's much easier to get wider like this than from the side view because of how muscles work. So people from the side view are thinner than people from the front view, especially if this person is very, very muscular. This created kind of a dissonance in my head. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but keep this in mind. Keep this in mind, okay? Also, his waist here also not that big, so... Now let's actually finish abs. The same logic, corner of the pectoral muscle, you do this, not all of this lower one will be visible because it wraps around like this. Here's another part of male anatomy gonna be sticking out, and then you just do like this, the same thing as was in the front. Here's belly button. If I would have drawn here from the middle of the pectoral muscle, here I would have drawn from the middle like so as well, but here I draw kind of on the decline, the same way I draw it here. Again, basically you take this and apply it here, very easy. Now let's talk about the crest a little bit. First of all, it's this shape, because if you look at the actual bone, it goes like this rather than just round. You can't just draw it round. It's again about stylization. I just like this shape more. And then where to put it, basically where glutes start, because glutes attached on the top of the crest, and then they go kind of like this. And so here's gonna be this little straight line, and then this is this curve. So basically here, so basically where butt starts, roughly, crest starts there as well, goes a little bit up or like this, and then into the leg basically. Again, this point is this point, the same thing that sticks out a little bit from the front. Now let's get into the arch. First let's talk about trapezius. The way I draw it, it's this. Okay, I saw people drawing it kind of like this with more indication of it. I just do this because first of all it's attached quite high on the skull. It starts somewhere where the jaw bone starts, or easier to remember where ear is ending, so quite high, then it goes like so, then we have the curve, and start from the back of the skull also, and then it goes kind of like this. In the front, again, remember it's attached from the front like this a little bit, and then it goes like this over the collarbone, then it goes like this on the shoulder blades, we're gonna talk about this in the next video, and then it goes like so. So it's not fully visible because back have this, give me a moment, so this wavy situation, you understand what I mean, you probably have a back if you watch this video. So trapezius kind of wraps into the back, so it's not even like fully visible here, it's go all the way kind of like this, but again not fully visible. And I just indicate it's here also. Here's kind of gonna be hairline starting, so it's gonna be covered as well if your character have hair. Now you can very well add it here, just full on line of it. I don't do this. Also remember there's gonna be arms here, so they also take up some space. If I feel like adding something here at all, I just usually add shoulder blades and call it a day. But again, you can draw trapezius, it's about stylization, just find the way that it'll work for you. But remember that this is how it looks from the side view. Maybe it's not like exactly here, maybe it goes a little bit longer, but it's details, it's not actually matters that much. So now it's a moment where we're gonna kinda stop for a moment. Let's talk about latissimus dorsi. First we're gonna remember that there's a bit of space between pectoral muscle and latissimus dorsi. But here is that's how it looks on the top of it. Again, it's also wraps in the back there, so here's just gonna be a line. Then here, this is the shoulder blade muscles. Here's gonna be teres major, not forgetting about this. Nobody actually draws it in the side view. Like, I haven't saw single drawing where an artist would indicate that teres major is here. Nobody actually indicates this top half as well. I'm gonna show how I draw it in a moment. Now then, latissimus dorsi, obviously it's attached to the arm from on the front as well. So again, if arm is here, it goes here on the arm and attached from the front here. But then it is attached here on the lower ribs as well. So if it goes like this from the arm, it goes like this, attached to the lower ribs, 2 or 3 lower ribs, I don't exactly remember, I think 3, but it doesn't actually matter. And then it does this. Now let us return to this diagram. So you can see how it starts on the top, then you can see how it travels like this, attached to the 3 lower ribs, and then it's something here, and then it just immediately goes like so to the crest of the pelvic bone, so again something here, over it, and all the way down here. Now we're gonna be talking about latissimus dorsi in the next video a lot, but here, although this muscle looks like this, most of the time artists simplify it like so, like this, just going into here, basically where the arch ending and this starts. Why? Because this white part is not exactly muscle, I don't know how it's called in English, but basically it's a connective tissue that then goes into the muscle, and all of the muscle you can see on all of those diagrams and stuff. First is white things that attach to the bone, then it goes to the muscle, and then that again goes into white things that attached to the bone. More often than not, that's how it looks. And the thing with this connective tissue is the fact that it doesn't increase in size, it just stays there, it doesn't do anything. It's just attached muscle. Okay, just like it's nothing, but no, it is very important, but not for the artist, because in all actuality it is pretty negligible, and most artists just gonna treat it as if it goes like this, because again, this part is like so. It doesn't stick out, it doesn't get bulkier. That's why when a person is muscular, this arch is gonna be more visible, because these top muscles can increase, like trapezius we talking about. The more muscular person is, the more it sticks out, but it's increased in here. Glutes, they also can get, they like so in not that muscular person, and the more muscular person is, it sticks out more. That's why this arch is kind of getting more of an arch. So latissimus dorsi, you can see most artists just treat it as if it's this shape basically, like so, completely ignoring this bottom part of it. And so here is this, it's this shape, completely ignoring bottom part of it in the side view. And so the way I draw it, it's literally this. I don't fully indicate where it's going. This is enough for me. Again, a lot of artists drawing full line here. It's kind of about stylization. Some artists do draw it all the way down here, but it's more rare than just simplifying it that way. Like, I'd recommend you look at how other people draw it, or look at references, experiment a bit, and kind of find the ways that would fit you to draw it. You know, again, it's about the way you want to stylize it. And yeah, on top of it is also a line, and again, I don't draw it, again, almost nobody does, but you very well can, just find a way to simplify it the way you would like, okay? And so, yes, I kind of already explained all of this, but this arch is, this top curve is because of trapezius, because of latissimus dorsi, because of muscles of the shoulder blade, kind of. It's all creates this mass of muscles that creates this curve, and again this bottom part kind of not, because there's kind of not a lot of muscles here that can be increased, at least not muscles that are visible, that are not like internal and stuff, that's not on the surface and not gonna be visible with a naked eye. And so that's kind of what this arch is. It's kind of the same thing with three parts here, but here is latissimus dorsi and then oblique. That's two parts of obliques, and here is just this group of muscle, then kind of lack of muscle, so to speak, and then glutes. Now it also varies. Some people, for example, just completely avoid this and just draw it kind of like this, just continuously like this, and then immediately into glutes, which is not wrong per se, because if you look at like references, at pictures of people, some who, especially not very muscular, have this like just like this and immediately glutes. Why this is happening? Because muscles are not very trained, they're not very big, they're not very defined, so they're not sticking out that much, and they all just kind of merge into one another, because again they're not very defined, not very muscular, so they kind of like appear as one line and then glutes. And that's it, because all of these muscles are kind of sits on top of a rib cage, which goes like so. So it's not going like down, it's going like kind of like this, kind of like this. This is a shape for the rib cage. And so here they sit on top of rib cage, here rib cage kind of ends, muscles kind of ends as well. Again, the ones that are visible from the naked eye, from the side view, because there are some shenanigans in this area in the back, but we'll get into it in the next video. And then we have our glutes. And that's it. Now let's actually finish it up, because we left this, still not pronouncing that. So again, you can see 4 of them visible, just like so, 2, 3, 4, just a bunch of lines, and that's it. I kinda try to point this like this, kind of point this line kind of like so. So these lines actually is like basically how this muscle sits on top of bones, because you know, muscles is not a singular strand of muscle fiber. For example, pectoral muscle, if I'm not mistaken, is 3 strands of muscles that combine into one. This muscle, which again I'm not pronouncing, is also 9, there's 9 of them, so they go like this, and actually here they then go like so. So here you can see them straight, so if you're gonna add them in this space, which you very well can, we saw them in that references with that other guy. Let me pull it up. Here you can kind of see that they go down, these triangles, but here they're kind of straight, because they here go down from basically bottom of the shoulder blade, and then they just go straight up. So you can very well do it like kind of like so, a little bit like so, and then this. I never saw anyone add this actually, maybe I wasn't paying attention enough. I'm not doing it either, because this is too much detail to add, as for my liking. But yeah, that's basically this muscle. And then the last one that we need to mention is oblique, because usually I don't indicate oblique in this side view situation at all, but some people do have like very muscular this part of oblique, so it's visible even from the side view. So in that case, I'm just usually indicate that there's oblique. It's kind of depend on how I drew lines of this muscle basically. I'm just trying to draw it in the way that it will not be very like overcrowded, you know what I mean. Now oblique, if you're interested how it attached, again there's internal and external oblique. I kinda combine them in one shape. Internal obliques attached like so, and external oblique attached something like so. Doesn't matter because again I combine it in one shape. Doesn't matter in this view because it's not very visible, with the exception of this. Usually I add a bit of line here to kind of, you know, indicate that there's maybe something. It's not like, you know, the most anatomically accurate because it goes like this, but it's just a little something that I like to add. And yeah, basically that's it. Hopefully I didn't yap too much about it because this video gonna be, I don't know how long, but I'm scared, so let's finish it up real quick. And so here we go. I've marked all of the muscles that we talked about today with colors so you can better see and understand everything. I also wrote how they called here. You can take a screenshot, or I'm gonna post all of this to my Blue Sky as well, so you can go there if you'd like. But that's pretty much it. Okay, this video already got too long, so let's wrap it up. I'm gonna one last time mention that this is kind of stylized, simplified way to draw it the way I like it, but hopefully it'll still gonna be helpful to you to understand what's going on with muscles of the torso. If you are still here,